yerme chikto chingi Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Sashipuki Choshimeto Tamare Rabalingashi Nidegempadi Sange Shintu Mikte Ulwarki Drokununam Dashingla Chopar Shoyidam Guru Ratna Mindrala Kam Niryatayami Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dage Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dage Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapso Chi Dage Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Buongiorno.
Good morning. I often like to observe the world around me and to think the way to live, imagining an object in balance where we have a central support and something above, and we have these three lines, and for it to be in balance, then the central part needs to be in a certain position, and then the weight. And on one side, let's think that we have our environment. Nature, if it's hot, if it's cold, if it's polluted, if it's not, our own moods, situations, people around us, the people that we're in contact with. And this is so everything that we call our surroundings. That's on one side. And on the other side, we have our body, our physical state of being, our hormones, or everything everything has to do with our body. Without getting into too many details now, it's obvious that in our life, when if at a certain point, when we're balanced, when we feel quite well, it can happen that maybe there's something in the environment, a situation, a conflictual situation, some kind of tension. Then what happens to that balance? We lose it. The same thing happens when we have a problem with our body. If we have a chemical imbalance or sickness, or if there's any kind of physical state in our body, then we also lose our balance. And at the center is our mental state of being, more our emotions, our non-conceptual state of being. When the mind is really flexible and knows how to adapt to situations, even if the surroundings are not perfect, then we know how to keep that balanced state. Instead, if it happens where that central structure isn't well, even if with a healthy environment and a healthy body, one is still suffering. This to say that our surroundings, the environment is important, and we are beings that are easily influenced. It's not that our surroundings don't matter and there's only the mind. No. Like the way that most of us react to situations, we are very easily influenced by the world around us. So our surroundings, our environment is important, and our body is fundamental. Just see if at a certain point you wake up with your hormones upside down. I mean, the way you perceive the world changes, doesn't it? Completely. Or if you're in pain, or if you're too tired, our body has a total influence on how we live the world. So the body is also fundamentally important. But what happens is we live in a society where taking care of our surroundings we take care of that. We try to create a place where we feel good, as most harmoniously live as harmoniously as possible in our house or at work. Not always the best way. Sometimes we create unhealthy surroundings, but we try really to avoid situations of conflict and tension. We want to be places where we feel well. And at the same time, we also give a huge importance to our body. There's already this awareness is quite widespread on the importance of eating well, avoiding pollutants, taking care of the body. Maybe somebody's fixated on supplements. That's all fine. That's great. I mean, we have this awareness of taking care of our health and the importance of our body. So doing exercises. What we're often missing, and I've asked many times, and I've always had the same answer, has it ever happened that you were educated in a certain way at home, at school, at university, somewhere, some kind of formation, some kind of how to take care of mental health? Have you had this education? But how important is our mind? It's fundamental. It's the most powerful tool that we have. A healthy mind, and I'm not talking about health, healthy mind opposed to psychological problems. I'm talking about a healthy. I'm talking about mental health, a mind that is not reactive, that is resilient, that feels things, but is able to go back to that balanced state. A healthy mind has clarity, is able to see things well, is able to concentrate well when one needs to concentrate, is calm, is able to have inner silence when it needs, and is able to have that inner dialogue when it's also useful. In Tibetan, we translate like something like the characteristic of a healthy mind has the characteristic of doing what we want it to do, going in the direction we want it to go, and not going against. So how can we have a healthy mind? A mind that is just well. But before we get there, I'm just going too fast. Let's first understand what is a healthy mind, and why should we worry about it? An unhealthy mind is a dissatisfied mind, a reactive mind, aggressive mind. Let's remember that. At least I have never seen, at least I haven't, I have never seen anyone have an aggressive attitude or violent attitude that didn't have at the basis some kind of inner suffering. Wherever there is violence is because at the basis there is an inner state of that person of malaise and suffering. So violence, aggression, is a sign of a mind that is not well. The person is not well. I've never seen someone that's satisfied and joyous. I've never seen someone like that act violently. Is that clear? So now we understand an important point with this is not the subject of today, but violence actually is a symptom. Violence in a social context is a symptom a symptom of our that's something that's not going well in our society, or even we can go on a macro level internationally. It's really important to take care of the symptom, understanding what the sickness is, but don't treat the symptom as the symptom as the sickness. Then if we try only to eliminate symptoms, then we don't look at the real causes of the problem. Even in our daily life, when we see that there's violence or aggression from our side or from someone else's side, it's because at the basis there's this initial state of suffering, of malaise, that someone doesn't know how to manage well. So an unhealthy mind has this reactive way of dealing with things, of aggressive way. There's dissatisfaction. There's dissatisfaction with a healthy mind, and at the same time, an unhealthy mind is not able to concentrate. It's not able to stay where it needs to stay, and an unhealthy mind has a hard time staying alone with itself. A healthy mind, instead, if one has no object of distraction and needs to stay alone, there's no problem. Like a master said, if you're alone and you're not feeling well, it means you're not in good company, and that's not a great thing. So we need to learn to be in good company with ourselves when we're alone. So a healthy mind has this aspect of having this inner calm, the ability to have concentration, clarity in understanding, the ability to deepen understanding, is sensitive, but at the same time, a very high level of resilience. So I feel what's happening, but I easily can go back to my balanced point. It's not like one is completely indifferent, so balanced and immovable. And a healthy mind always goes towards the solution without staying trapped in the problem. A healthy mind naturally goes towards seeing others, a state of love and altruism, and not towards selfishness, self-centeredness, and a sense of self-gratification, hatred, resentment. And this takes me, just summarizing and getting right to the point, this takes me to what would be, let's say, a Buddhist advertisement. I've already said it many times, and one day I'm going to do this. Let's imagine the following. It would be something like this. Just imagine for a moment, allow yourself to observe yourself, observe your body. Try to see the positive aspects and negative aspects. How is your body now? Try to observe like a kind of portrait, a kind of painting with the different shades. There's your body. Look at the relationships, the human relationships you have in your life now. The relationships you have, your economic situation as well, the social context in which you live. In other words, try to make a kind of photograph of your life with all of the different subtleties. Today, as it is, can you imagine that? And now, let's allow ourselves to dream. Let's imagine what our life would be like with the body that we have, the relationships that we have, and our same economic situation, the same life that we just observed, but with a few changes. What would this life be like if we were more satisfied? How would this life be if we were able to see others, if we were able to go beyond that obsession with the I and the my? What would our life be like if we stopped projecting on, stopped thinking how things should be, but instead we accepted things as they are, and we projected our energy into what we want in the future? Imagine if we were more stable, more joyous. Would we like this life? I would. So here's the point is, why should we cultivate a healthy mind? Because we live our life through our minds. If we think about the worst things around us, near or far, let's go to the extreme. Think about the wars. Without getting into the details now, because we're already bombarded with very heavy information. You just say the word and all sorts of images come to our mind. But where does war come from? From our surroundings, from our body, or from our mind? It comes from our mind. It comes from the mind. It comes from selfishness. It comes from ignorance, from hatred, from anger, etc. It's a very clear manifestation, a symptom of a very negative, unhealthy, sick state of the human mind. So the solution for this problem, where can we find it? In our environment, in our body, or in our mind? In the mind. And here we have a very fundamental point. This is not just about the world around us, talking about the wars. No, this is also about our own lives and our own surroundings. How many people do you need for there to be conflict? Just one. When you put two, you multiply the possibilities of there being a conflict. And they put three, then you increase that probability even more. So As long as we are dissatisfied, as long as we have this inner state that's not well, we will find the reasons outside to justify that. So the question that I ask myself is, how can we reach an inner state of more satisfaction without talking about us right away about a perfect, marvelous state of being? Let's go for the minimum here, which is already a lot. Here's something that's in our favor. There was a master, Geshe Chekawa was his name, around the 12th century. And he said something like, the mind is full of defects, but it has a great quality. What you teach it, it will follow. Our mind is malleable, like our body. The more we repeat something, the easier that thing becomes. The more we do something in a certain way, the more that becomes a habit. It becomes easier. A Buddhist master earlier, this master named Shantideva, he said there's nothing that's not easy once you're used to it. But how can you get used to something? By repeating it, repeating it, repeating it. And here there's a fundamental point. We don't have the choice to get used to something or not, to transform or not transform. Let's use the term get used to something, habituate ourselves to something. We are constantly getting used to something, familiarizing ourselves with something because we're constantly doing something. Just see, for example, since we're young, are we more used to having one object of perception at a time? And we take one thing, we look at that, and we stay with that object, and we from beginning to end, and then we go on to another? Or are we constantly looking at one, and we jump from one to the other, and then bombarded with objects of perception? How are we used to the second? And we're used to doing that, going from one thing to the other. We're used to that. And just as everything is easy once you're used to it, and the opposite is true too. Everything is difficult if you're not used to it. Not because intrinsically it's difficult, but just simply because it's not part of our habit. So what happens is the word meditate actually is a translation, in my opinion, quite wrong. Because if I say meditate on love, what do you think about? If I say, even in Italian, in English, if I say meditate on love, what comes to your mind? Think about love. If someone yells at someone, it says, okay, no, meditate on what you've done. If someone is scolded, what does that mean? It means think about, look again at what you've done. It has nothing to do with the concept of meditation. That's why I say that it's not the right word, the right translation. The word in Tibetan is gom. Gom literally means to habituate, to familiarize. I can get used to, I can familiarize myself with anything. The more I eat something, the more I'm used to eating that thing. The more I walk, the more used to walking I am. The more I move, etc., etc. So the concept of gom, often translated as meditation, is much closer to the idea of familiarization, where we direct our mind towards what is healthy, so that we gradually get used to that healthy thing. So we familiarize our mind with calm, clarity, satisfaction, love. So how can I familiarize myself with love? If I'm thinking about the meaning of love, I'm familiarizing myself with the meaning of love, not with love. So to familiarize myself with love, I need to feel love, induce the feeling of love, and stay for a long time with that feeling of love. And at that point, I'm really meditating on love. I'm familiarizing myself with the feeling of love, even if the word love, even if the word meditate gives this idea of thinking. We intend it as familiarizing. It's a little bit like saying a vehicle's job is to take you from one place to another, but before I know where I want to go, I need to learn how to drive that car. And in meditating, the first thing we need to do is we need to learn how to use our mind, to direct our mind, to have a little bit more control, to take the reins in our hand. And once we do that, then we can choose what we want to familiarize ourselves with. And there's an infinite number of possibilities, but here we have a small problem. To be able to meditate well, to do this exercise in the mind, which is fundamental, I repeat, we need first of all to learn how to take care of our mind. And let me just take a step backwards, sorry. Our tendency is to live our mental state as if it were a consequence of our surroundings. Just a minute, So what happens is we have this tendency to think that our mental state, if I feel anger or jealousy, if I'm happy, if I'm sad, how I feel inside, we see it as a result of what happens outside. So if I want to have a certain state of mind, we try to change our external conditions. We work on our environment, or our work, or I take a pill, and we feel these aspects of our mind, but we give more importance to our body and to our surroundings. What we need to see first of all is that our surroundings, our environment, it doesn't exist independently from our mental, emotional state in which we find ourselves. Actually, it's the reality. It's much clearer that our outside world is actually the result of our inner world. For example, if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, what happens? How do you see things? Things that maybe don't normally bother you, maybe they bother you. Is that because that thing has changed, or because our filter is a little dirty that day, through which we see that thing? We are totally unable to perceive anything independently from ourselves. And what's interesting is when we're able to induce our mind into a state of calm, of satisfaction, or gratitude, love, etc., we gradually familiarize our mind with those feelings, and that helps us, because then when we go to one situation or another, then we're more prepared. Here we have two problems. So the first is to be able to meditate. First of all, we need to take away these obstacles, interferences to meditation. Let's imagine that I give a sponge to each one of you, and I explain how to dry the water from the floor. I mean, that's very easy. You take the sponge, you 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 wipe up the water, and then you take a bucket and you squeeze out the sponge. But as I'm telling you how to do this, at the same time, I leave the faucet open. After a while, someone is frustrated and says, I'll never be able to dry up the floor, because no matter how much water I dry up, there's still water on the floor. What does this mean? That first of all, we have objects of distraction. If we don't calm these objects of distraction a little bit, we won't be able to calm our mind down and concentrate. And we live in a time where we have an enormous amount of distractions. In the ancient times, one could go to the mountains. Once I went on retreat. It was my first solitary meditation retreat. About when I was about 9 years old, doing 12, 14 hours of meditation a day. I was just a boy, and I came back from retreat. I went to my master, who had given me all the instructions for the retreat, and his question was, "Were you on retreat?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Were you really on retreat?" "Yes. I did my 4 sessions, as you told me. I accumulated the number of mantras, as you told me. I didn't see anybody for that period. But were you retreated? Or were you closed in your room with your mind that vagabonded throughout the whole world?" And I have to say, a couple of times I would go around, and my mind would go round and round. But today we have another problem. I can go to a mountain hut by myself, but if I have my phone with me, all the distractions of the world are with me. I read the other day, for example, there are studies that have shown that when someone is constantly interrupted, and I think this is the normalcy today, think about at home or at work, how often are you able to do one thing without being interrupted? Maybe the little message that arrives, or a mail that comes, there's an email that comes, or someone interrupts you, asks you a question. I mean, how long can we stay without being interrupted? An hour? 2 hours? Half an hour? 15 minutes? What I read, if I remember correctly, the average in offices is about 7 minutes. And in some contexts, it was 90 seconds. There's lots to say about this. When we're interrupted, our mind uses up so much energy going back and forth, and we lose our ability to concentrate. We lose the mental clarity and our ability to deepen our understandings. We lose a lot. But even worse, they saw that when someone is used to being constantly interrupted, when he's not interrupted, what does he do? He interrupts himself by himself. Finally, you can stay there without a message, without anybody saying anything. After a while, then you feel that lacking, that abstinence, and you have nothing to do, and you want to pick up that object, or you like, what is this? What is that? You find something absolutely useful. I mean, you have to do something else. You interrupt yourself. Why? Because our mind is used to being interrupted, having more objects of distraction. A psychiatrist said a short time ago, she said that one of the functions of the mind is to foresee something. So we're constantly foreseeing what is going to happen. As I'm talking to you, actually what you hear a word. Well, you hear one word, but your mind is already foreseeing what the probability of the following world will be. So if you hear a word that's misplaced, often you won't even notice. it's said actually that when we see with our own eyes, what we're actually seeing is some kind of forecast of what will come in some a millisecond. We're constantly looking to the future, and when we look to the possibilities and we don't have a certainty, and the possibilities increase, anxiety and stress comes. That's why taking a decision creates stress, because we can't foresee with clarity and certainty. This doctor said for a long time she used to drink a lot of coffee, and in the morning at the same time she would drink coffee. When she stopped drinking coffee, she would get a very strong headache. I don't know if that's ever happened to any of you. When you stop drinking coffee, why? She explained that when you drink coffee, now I don't remember exactly precisely what she said, but she said there's a part of our blood vessels that dilate. So what happens? Our body, knowing that there will be this dilation, it prepares itself, and they contract. They contract because they know that they're going to then dilate, because then it would be balanced. Otherwise, one would not feel good. But when you stop drinking coffee, the blood vessels are constricted, but the coffee doesn't arrive and they stay constricted. And then you need to leave a little bit of time for the body to be without that substance, and then the physical imbalance then changes. So if I'm used to being interrupted, foreseeing a constant interruption I know is going to come. And when it's not there, I look for it myself. So a fundamental point to be able to meditate is about changing our habits. And one of the habits that we need to change is about the useless information that we are constantly receiving. It's difficult because we're addicted. We're drugged. But it's fundamental for us to start diminishing this useless information. A cell phone is part of our lives. But I invite you to try to do this challenge. Take your cell phone, and before you use it, ask yourself, what do I need to do? Is this something I need or not? Do I need to call that person? Okay, you take your phone, call that person, but don't do anything else with it. I need to look up some kind of information. Look for that information and then close your phone. Turn off your phone or put it down. Or you pick up your cell phone. You don't have a reason really to why you have it in your hand, then put it down. There's a challenge that's really, here's quite a challenge. Leave the house without your cell phone. I see that. I see a little, okay, it'll pass. You can do it. You can do it. Another challenge, easier. Once you get home, turn your phone off, not airplane mode, but turn off your phone. Put it at your entry. Maybe with your entry, maybe you have a piece of furniture. Put it in a drawer until the following day. Allow yourselves to be with yourselves, to be with yourself. Strangely, it's just not easy. Why isn't it easy? Because we're used to doing things differently, and if it's doing something against our habit is tiresome. But we need to create this habit of being in silence one of the most widespread problem in our times is chronic stress. And one of the best antidote to chronic stress, to diminish cortisol, for example, is silence. Silence, not just from our senses, but mental silence. Stop that inner dialogue. When we're able to create that inner silence, then one naturally, the cortisol diminishes, and one finds that balanced state. It's the opposite of stress. But think for just a minute, how much time during the day where we don't have external objects that come to our senses. Information that we just constantly receive. 3 hours during the day? In my opinion, I think is almost nothing. When we wake up, there's the bad habit to reach for the phone, or during breakfast, we turn on the radio or the TV, or we listen to the news, or you pick up the newspaper, and that's already a lot. And then you start with the messages, and in the car you connect your phone and you listen to the radio, and then you go to the work, and at home you need to do some kind of passive entertainment to calm down all those thoughts, and then you maybe take something to calm yourself down. You spent all day long activating your mind, and now you need to, between coffee and constant information, threats, we're activating our mind, and at the end of the day, we don't sleep well. What do we need to do? We need to calm ourselves down. And what goes together with coffee? Alcohol. Because coffee activates, and now we need to calm down. If not alcohol, other things. I mean, even an herbal tea, better than alcohol. But depending on how you are, maybe the herbal tea is just not enough. What does all this have to do with meditation? If we don't do this work to find a minimum amount of balance, trying to meditate is like is trying to dry the floor with the faucet open, and then you'll say, I'm not able to meditate, I'll never be able to do it, etc., etc. But we're not giving the minimum amount of conditions that we need. And we live in a social context where most of us live in this situation. Is this all clear? Are you following? So let's start with these small challenges, because we need to create space in our mind to be able to meditate. So first of all, we need to take away what uses up space. A few challenges. So your cell phone in a drawer, at least for a few hours. I get home. Okay, I've looked at all my messages, and now I put my phone away. If you're a doctor, or if you're on call, that's another story. And then every once in a while, I go out without my cell phone. I'm at the restaurant with someone. That person gets up to go to the bathroom, and I pick up the cell phone. No, leave it where it was. Don't use it when it's not necessary. And little by little, we try to diminish the useless information, the unuseful information, because our mind has a limited amount of information that it can process, and priorities given to our senses. So what we do is more or less like this. I'll try to use this metaphor that might help a little bit. Let's imagine that we're in an office and we want to read a document. We want to really deepen our understanding with this document. We have that document and it's there. And as we pick it up, then other documents are placed on our table. And then every time someone comes, they they put a document on our table, and then we need to see it, and then we need to file it. Is it urgent? This is I don't need this, I can throw it away. No, this goes to another office. But there's an enormous quantity of documents that are constantly arriving, and I can never get to the document that I want to read. And if I finally get to having time, then I'm too tired. So what happens is I can meditate, and then one falls asleep. This happens. I don't know if you've ever had this experience. If you've seen this, or it's happened to you, or it's happened. Okay, here's finally a moment of silence, of meditation, and then that's someone who's snoring or some kind of situation. It's not because that person is not being respectful or something. One finally has gotten out of that mode of stress or on heightened alert, against the incoming threat, and that's all that fatigue comes out. And good that the person can sleep in that case. I mean, we need rest. We need to rest. Taking away distractions, there will be that moment of anxiety, of abstinence, because we're not used to it. But little by little, we'll be used to not having all that information. Let me give you an extreme situation, and then we'll talk about what to do. A short time ago, I read about a Spanish psychiatrist who was called to see children who had been diagnosed with autism, and they were between 6 months and 3 years old, and they all had quite similar symptoms. They couldn't look someone in the eye. They weren't able to communicate. It was very difficult for them to eat. They didn't sleep well. They would calm down only when they had a screen or a cell phone in their hand. The symptoms, for example, like not looking in the eye, not being able to communicate, not having the contact with their own body, these were symptoms of autism. At a certain point, this doctor looked at them, and she saw that the symptoms that these children had were the same symptoms that that drug addicts have, like those who are addicted to heroin, for example. Inability to have contact with others, socially distanced from society, not inability to have relationships, distance from their own body, suffering when they're not in contact with their object of attraction. It's just that these are not autistic children. These children are drugged. So this psychiatrist told the doctors, for 1 week, take away any kind of screen. Of course, the first days it was living hell. I mean, it seemed like you were torturing the children. I remember an acquaintance who is old, but when he was really small, this child liked to do a little bit of theater. And one day he was with his mother. He was 3 or 4 years old. He was very small. And at the supermarket, he started having, throwing a tantrum. I want this, and the mother, the mother said no, and then it had such a tantrum, and the child started screaming, "Call child services!" So when they were taking away the cell phone, it was like a torture, taking away the drugs from a druggie. After a few days, they really calmed down. They started eating again. They started looking in the eyes. They turned back to being normal children. But it's not just the children who are drugged. We too are addicts. So let's be careful. Let's be careful about this. And let's try really little by little to change. And to do this, we get into how to meditate. Just one last thing, sorry. meditation is this exercise of the mind. We familiarize our mind with mental states, healthy mental states of consciousness. You choose what you want to familiarize your mind with, with awareness, and you come into contact with that mental state, and you're used to that mental state. So one problem is that we have a lot of distractions, and the second difficulty we have today is that we want everything today for yesterday. Things need to be fast and immediate right away. It's a process of change of habits is not immediate. It requires repetition, little by little, to make this change. Okay, I've seen people say, I tried meditating and I'm not able. Okay, how long were you doing it? Well, I tried twice. I tried 3 times. I tried once. That's not trying at all. If you tell me that you've been trying it for 6 months and it's not working, then let's see really what you're doing. There's something that you're not doing correctly. So how do we do it? There's so many different methods. What I've seen in our context, first of all, it's good to start with something simpler. There's the bridge of our breathing, our respiration. Breathing is, first of all, it's the only part of our body that is both part of our parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, which means that it works by itself autonomously, and it also with awareness, and it also helps direct the rhythm of our mind. One of my masters gave this example. He would say, imagine a child who goes to a market and he really wants something, even an adult. It doesn't change much. What do you do so that you keep him from wanting that thing? Do you say no? Does that work? Or do you give an alternative? You need to distract him. Our mind is not able to think about 2 things at the same time. And normally we just don't like the no. So if we're thinking about something and we tell ourselves, oh, I shouldn't think about this thing, then we think about it even more. No, we need to take our mind somewhere else. And the first part of meditation where we start training, we have this mind that in ancient times it was just described as a monkey in the tree. If you look there at the left, there's a first painting image, and then you see that kind of path, and you see that practitioner who's running behind an elephant and a monkey, and which represents one's own mind, is trying to reach this meditative concentration. And at the beginning, our mind is like a monkey, and the monkey mind, a monkey in a tree. I don't know if you've ever seen a monkey in a tree. Is the monkey just still in the tree? Oh no, it's constantly jumping from one branch to another. This is our mind, from one object to another. This jumping from object to object is generated by what we say in Tibetan is gumpa, which is this kind of anxiety that comes from desire, from wanting something, which is when we have a state of pleasure, there's this dopamine. After the dopamine, there's the kind of emptiness that pushes us to want that experience again. That's all. It's all there, where we look through our senses, what I see, what I taste, what I touch. We try to find mental objects to bring us to that state of pleasure. This constant of research of wanting to go back to that state of pleasure brings our mind to jumping from one thing to another. This is one of the main, so-called enemies of meditation. And the second is the mind that is foggy, a foggy mind, the mind that doesn't have clarity, mental torpor. But at the beginning, the first challenge is to calm our mind, or if we're on an extreme of a lot of agitation. So it can happen that when we bring it, it can happen that we go from one extreme of mental anxiety and then we go to the other extreme when we might even think, oh, I'm meditating so well, but you're in a kind of fog and you're not thinking about much. You're almost half asleep. I mean, what are you familiarizing your mind with? You're with fog. It's a foggy mind. So you're meditating on foggy mindedness. That's the mental torpor. But for most of us at the beginning, our problem is agitation. So breathing helps us have an object on which we can direct our mind and distract it from the other distractions. And this bridge is this connection between our body and our mind. And the objects of meditation are infinite. I can meditate on love. I can meditate on the microphone in front of me. I can meditate on a sound. On anything that exists can be an object of meditation. I mean, to place my mind on something, and I familiarize my mind with something. It can be an emotional state of being. It can be a state of perception. Anything. But first of all, we need to learn how to keep our minds still and placed on an object of perception. And there's some things that help us. Let's do something. Sit with your back straight. One of the first things to meditate is the importance of keeping the back straight, because when you're hunched over, that naturally brings us a foggy mindedness. For example, if one tries to meditate on a couch, where you sink, when you sink into the cushion, it's impossible. People ask if people say, Lama, can I meditate lying down? I say, try it, but you'll probably fall asleep. I mean, the body and our mind are constantly connected. So try just for a moment to observe here now with your back straight. How do you breathe? It's not meditation, but just observe, where is your breath? Without forcing your breath. Are we breathing high up in our chest, or lower down in our abdomen? Is it a deeper breath? Is it a short breath? Is it regular? Is it irregular? And what about our clothes, our pants, our waistline? Are they blocking our abdominal breathing? What happens is the following. When we have a high breathing up towards our chest, our thorax, that activates our mind. It activates our sympathetic nervous system, where we're connected more to reason and mental activity. When we have a deeper breathing, more abdominal, when we breathe from our belly, that activates our parasympathetic nervous system, a state of calm and creativity and a deeper calm. There was a yoga master who said that in his opinion, one reason why many people today feel anxiety, he thinks it's connected to the clothes that we wear, because very often the waistline is tight. They need to be tight and nice. I mean, they they tighten. They're tight around the waist. How can you breathe with your abdomen when your waistline is tight? So it's hard, and so naturally you breathe with your chest, and that creates anxiety, generates anxiety. So it's important also, if you have a belt or a waistline that is tight, you need to undo it. So we need to be comfortable so that we can breathe from our abdomen. What we're going to do, first of all, we need to rest our mind on our breath and not force our mind on our breath. This is an important point. Very often when we try to meditate and it's said, we say, oh, keep your mind on your breath. If we were to give an image to that, and then do we just take our mind and we gently place it on our breath, or do we put our breathing in a kind of cage, or do we chain it? We try to keep it to our breath. What image comes to mind? Unfortunately, is more the second one. Meditation does not work if we try to force the mind onto something. We need to relax and rest our mind from the distractions, and we rest our mind on an object. Even the state of concentration, meditation requires concentration. If we imagine the face of someone who's concentrated, is it this or this? A concentrated mind. Is this a more concentrated mind, or is it this one? In your opinion? It's more like this, isn't it? This is a huge mistake that we make, because the state of concentration shouldn't be a state of tension where we constrict our mind. Well, this is when we don't know how to concentrate well. For a relaxed concentration, a few days ago, for example, I was with someone who showed me his passion for making paper models with recycled paper. It makes these amazing things with the boats and who knows what. And this person said that when I do this, I don't think about anything. Time just flies. Or, for example, if you read something and you're so absorbed into the story, there's no longer you or others. When you're in the flow, as they say in English, this kind of flow that you're in, of relaxed, we can say relaxed concentration, because there isn't anything else in the mind other than that. And at the same time, one's not forcing anything, and it's not tiresome, and at the end one feels energetic and fine. This is the state of concentration that we want to reach. It's not a state of concentration, a state of constricting. It's a state of relaxation. And when you do it really, when one does it really well, one doesn't even see the time go by. When you meditate well, there are experiences where one's there, one sits and begins the meditation session. One feels like hours have gone by, but maybe just a few minutes. And also the opposite is true. Maybe it feels like just a few minutes, and yet hours had gone by. One loses that perception of time and the perception of fatigue. So let's remember that right from the beginning, we shouldn't try to force ourselves onto something. Instead, we should try to rest on something. And this, at the beginning, is our breath. So the first thing is to allow ourselves to observe our breath. We start by observing, or we simply we see where our breath is, how our breath is. Is it an abdominal breathing? Is it up in our chest? And is it superficial? Is it deep? We just observe. And once we've observed a little bit, then we start directing our breath to have a deeper breathing. And one technique that has worked really well for me is where we don't worry about meditating. First of all, we do this exercise based on our breath, but not just any kind of breathing. We're going to breathe in 4 phases because, we already breathe. But once we need to breathe in a certain way that is not that easy, that requires some effort and concentration, then little by little we're directing our mind and we're concentrating on something. So we do it in four phases. We inhale, we hold, we exhale, and we hold. These 4 phases. The cycle is the following. Normally, the base would be where we start by counting to 4 with our inhale. Then we hold counting up to 8. We exhale counting to 8. And then we hold again counting to 4. For many, many people at the beginning, it's difficult. And if you're not able to hold up to 8, then count to 6 or to 4, to 5, whatever is comfortable without forcing. This exercise won't work at all if after holding, then you need to and take up the air again. We inhale, hold, exhale, and hold in a comfortable way. So ideally, we start with 4, 8, 8, 4. And if that's too tiresome, then we do 4 or 3 or whatever it is. Trying numbers that are comfortable for us. And then little by little, we can add time. What's interesting is that when we have something to keep our mind busy, like counting, breathe 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, 6, 7, 8. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. And then inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. We're busy. Having the mind busy, our mind has less space to think about other things. Because if you try right away to meditate, saying, okay, breathe, observe your breath, and don't think about anything else, I'll just forget about it. It's a bit like the story of this practitioner who goes to the Himalayas. It's a very old story. It says they went to this spiritual searcher, went to find his master, said, I want to reach enlightenment. What should I do? And the master said, it's really easy. You can do anything, but you cannot think about the blue monkey. Everything else is fine, but don't think about the blue monkey. Sit down to meditate. You can think about anything, but not the blue monkey. What happens? Obviously, what comes to mind? The blue monkey. So what happens is if you just sit down to meditate, okay, just think about your breath without thinking about anything else. No, your mind's going to have a party. It's going to, you'll find things that you least expect. Because if you tell your mind you cannot think of anything else, you're already constricting your mind. And we just don't work that way. We need to be proactive and not try to oppose. So we direct our mind towards something and without blocking it from something else. And so when we observe our breath, we count our breath, naturally our mind calms down because there's something else to think about. When we're able to create a habit with that, then little by little you increase. From 4 you go to 5. So you inhale 5, you hold 10, you exhale 10, and then you hold 5, and then you go up to 6 and 12, and then 12 and 6. Ideally getting up to 8, 16, 16, 8. And the more we're able to inhale deeply, hold stably, for longer periods of time, then naturally you are calming your mind. You're desactivating your mind. So we're desactivating our mind that's constantly activated. And this naturally will bring us to a place where we need to rest our mind. And after a while, where one is not counting the breaths anymore, and one is simply observing the breath without having other thoughts. When there's familiarity with this, at that point, one begins with the breath and then can begin meditation on love or gratitude or impermanence or the preciousness of this life. There's thousands of different things that we can meditate on. Before we do this exercise together, I want to make one other precision, that in meditation there are two types mostly, two types of meditation. Chegum in Tibetan and Jorgum in Tibetan, which would be analytical meditation and single-pointed meditation. What we've talked about so far is single-pointed meditation, but this, we can call it, is this type of exercise is a preparation for meditation. It's fundamental, and I say, don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry to meditate. Let's do this preparation well. If you can do this if you can prepare yourself well, meditation will come as a natural consequence. And this already brings so many benefits. Analytical meditation instead is when we enter in a kind of inner dialogue where we take one subject and we analyze that object, we elaborate that as if we were trying to convince someone. And we little by little get there. You can do an analytical meditation on the gratitude towards someone. Why do I feel gratitude towards this person? You try to remember the things this person did, or that thing. Let's think about gratitude for whales. If I say, why would I be grateful for whales? It was very simple, actually. How important is breathing for us? It's fundamental, isn't it? It's said that, the only thing between life and death is one breath. If you stop breathing, then we're not alive anymore. So what do whales have to do with our breathing? It's said that every 3 breaths, some studies say half, some say 2/3. It depends on whales. Our breath depends on whales. The oxygen on this planet, said half or 2/3, different explanations, but even 1/3 would be enough. It is created by photosynthesis, but not from the Amazon, which is also fundamental, but from the oceans. In the ocean, there are these micro plants. Then there's these green you can see like green stains from space of this enormous amount of plankton in the ocean. These plants need fertilizer. and they release a tremendous amount of oxygen. So the fertilizer of the plankton actually comes from the poop of these whales that eat these plankton, no? And remember that whales, when they poop, they don't stay still. They swim for kilometers and kilometers and kilometers. And as they poop at throughout the ocean, and in that process, what happens? They're fertilizing the ocean. They're fertilizing these plankton, you know. They're letting these plankton to regenerate and release oxygen, and I hope that it will never happen that we will be without whales. But if there were no whales, there would be no fertilizer for the plankton. We would have less plankton and we would have less oxygen. So now when I say, think about your gratitude towards whales, it's easier. And we did a kind of analytical meditation where you start thinking about all the reasons why we should feel gratitude towards a whale. What does a whale give me? The ability to breathe. Wow. Now, when I can feel that feeling of gratitude, and then I stay single-pointedly on that state of mind, but before feeling that, I need to induce that. I do that through reason. I do that through visualization, through this analytical process. Is that clear? For example, how do you meditate on patience? It's important to have patience, isn't it? How can you meditate on patience? You think about being patient? No. This is how you do. First of all, we do an analytical meditation on patience. We reflect on all the negative effects of anger, nervousness, aggression, that we lose control of ourselves. We say what we wouldn't normally say. That our relationship with someone else, sometimes it takes years to create a relationship of trust. But just one moment of aggression can destroy. Just a moment of anger can destroy what took years to build. We can feel how bad anger is to our health, and how it brings more conflict. And on the other hand, we can't expect the world to be the way we think it should be. So inevitably, we're going to find ourselves into situations that aren't the way we think they should be. And being able to stay calm and not react badly in front of these situations is a huge quality. So patience is a great virtue. And we reflect on this until we get to the conclusion that no matter what happens, it's no valid reason to lose control of myself and act with anger. Once you get there, you take that conclusion that you got to, and then you just set it aside. I hide it behind a curtain, and I take that analytical conclusion and I set it aside. And at that point, I breathe again and again. And I imagine a situation that brings me that feeling of anger. I imagine that place at work, or that person does that thing that I don't like. I imagine that maybe another who does, what I don't like, that would take me to lose my patience. I imagine that thing. I let that thing happen until I feel that tension in my belly. It's not just a mental game. I need to really start to feel that anger brewing. And when I see that it starts to come out, at that point, I take all that reasoning that I did before and I apply it. I say, no, it doesn't matter what happens. There's nothing that can happen that merits this reaction. And then I breathe. So in front of that situation, I allow myself to not react with anger. And once I'm able to find that space of stability and non-aggressiveness in front of that situation that would normally bring that, I stay in that state as long as possible. And I'm familiarizing myself with patience. Otherwise, I just familiarize myself with the concept of patience, which is not the same thing. So to meditate on patience, I need to be in front of an object of anger. To meditate on compassion, to meditate on love, what do? I imagine another person, another being. I connect with that person. I see that person, and I generate a deep feeling of seeing that person's happiness is important to me, and I generate affection when I'm able to do that, and I stay with that feeling. And then at that point I can say I'm meditating on love, the well-being and the happiness of someone else. We can meditate on so many things. So analytical meditation is takes us to a mental state, and then we use the single-pointed meditation to stay on that object, and our breathing is the preparation to be able to do everything afterwards. Once you know how to meditate, it's just a marvelous world. But at the beginning, we need to calm our minds down by giving our minds another game and to distract it. Otherwise, it's just jumping from one thing to another. And like I repeat at the beginning, it's tiresome because we're going against the current, that we're against what we're used to. And it also difficult because it requires constancy. Meditating one day is great, but it requires constancy to create this familiarity. And one benefit of meditation is once we create more habit of for meditating, then we are able to enter into contact with our intuition, our ability to deepen the content of what we're thinking about, or ability to have more clarity in taking decisions. We are less manipulated. It's good for work. It's good for relationships. And if we can elaborate our emotions better, then of course our relationships are going to benefit. I mean, it's just an infinite number of benefits to being able to meditate. So I'd say let's try together this first part. And the posture of meditation is important. There's this posture that has been used for centuries and centuries, about 25 centuries at least. People say, can I meditate in a different position? Try. If it works for you, great. But the key to meditate well is keeping our back straight but not tense. So one thing that helps is having the back of our seat, of our bottom, slightly raised. So if you're on the floor, then you can use a small cushion, or if you're on a chair, maybe you don't need it. If you want to meditate, you'll need time to find the cushion that fits you. The cushion that I use is one of my greatest objects of attachment. This cushion is created by one of my masters from Thailand, his name is Lumpotata, and he has an enormous center. The last time I was there, it's been a few years now, and I asked how many registered members are there, and he said those registered about 4 million, and he was fixated on posture, and even in their offices, they offer all these chairs that help the posture. You can see also Lama Caroline's Lama Caroline's throne. She also has this cushion. So I just show you this brown, this cushion, because this is in my opinion, one of the greatest meditation designs. So there are two parts here. So if you need a higher cushion, you can fold it, but this height is already good for me, and so your knees, your legs are on the lower part. So cushions that are too high for me personally don't work, but I invite you to find the one that works for you. And once you find the right one, keep it as one of your greatest objects of attachment so that you can really use it well. In any case, so the fundamental part is having a back straight, and traditionally we talk about the 7 or 8 postures. Let's look at the traditional posture, remembering that our back is of utmost importance. So our back is straight, and we imagine, like at the top, like at our fontanella, imagine a kind of string that's pulling very slightly. So our back is straight, it's not slouched, but it's not tense either with our chest out. The second point of the posture is our legs. In Thailand, for example, one leg is bent in front and the other one is backwards. I've tried that and it works quite well. But the Tibetan posture, we use what's called the Vajra asana, which is what we would call a full lotus position, which not everyone is able to do. Here we put both feet resting on our thighs. This posture is ideal because if you sit like this, then your back is naturally straight. If you sit like this, you don't have to put any effort into keeping your back straight. But remember, that position needs to be comfortable. So if you sit like this and you have to force yourself to be like this, then the mind goes to the pain and the pain in the knee, etc. There's also a half lotus or half vajra, where one is underneath and one is above. This is what I prefer if I need to sit for a longer period of time. I'm able to sit in the full vajra, full lotus position, but not for after a certain amount of time it starts being painful. So I prefer the half lotus position, half vajra. If you're not able to do that, you can sit with just both legs underneath your knees or on a chair. So that we have one back, two legs. Then we have the posture, the position of our shoulders. This should not be tense, not forward or backwards. And if we put our arms in this meditation position where the right hand is placed on top of the left with the thumbs that meet, ideally at the height of our navel, and the actual fingers, at 3 fingers under our navel, that happens if your legs are in the right position. So if you're in a full lotus, but if you're not, then I just some practical advice. Take a pashmina, a scarf or something, to give a little bit of height. So you don't create any tension in your arms, but your hands should just be resting on your lap. So look at my, see now, my back, my shoulders are relaxed. We have this tendency to create tension in our shoulders. No, the shoulders should be absolutely relaxed, and our back, 2 legs, 3 shoulders, 4 hands. When we put our hands, we create triangles here. We're not keeping our arms attached to our trunk. So 4 hands and 5 heads. So our head shouldn't be back or forward, but slightly forward. When we bring our head forward, we imagine our fontanella, which is that hole in our cranium, which when we're as a newborn is not completely closed. So from that point, it should be completely our head should be completely straight through our whole body. And number 6 would be our mouth. Our mouth should be relaxed. Ideally with our tongue that touches our palate. I say ideally because maybe at the beginning it's difficult. When we put our tongue on our palate, that relaxes our body. And when it's on the palate, but not the whole tongue, but just the tip of our tongue, and the tongue like just a little bit bent, and to the tip of our palate behind our teeth. And one benefit of that is that one won't have to swallow, one won't salivate. And when my master explained this to me, that you don't drool, and I thought if I'm meditating and I'm so concentrated and I'm drooling and not paying attention to that, then that's fine with me. But like this, we don't have to swallow. Our eyes should be slightly closed, looking downwards. There are meditations where one can look behind or look up, but in our tradition, our eyes are slightly closed, looking downwards. Oh, you imagine, like where you're seated, think about the length of your entire body there, with your body laid out in front of you. That should be the point down below where your focus. So starting with our back, get to the 7th, which was our eyes, and the 8th would be our breath. So now we sit like this, and I will guide you with the breathing technique. First of all, we relax our body a little bit. We observe if there are any kind of tensions in our back, in our shoulders, in our legs, in our arms. When we inhale, we gather up these tensions. And when we exhale, we release these tensions. We allow ourselves to relax our face too, as if there were little micro tensions. And when we inhale, we identify these micro tensions, and we exhale, we allow those micro tensions to be released. kindly we observe our own breath without forcing. We simply observe. We observe. We see if our breathing is high in our chest or if it's abdominal. Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it deep? Is it shallow? We observe. We try to observe the movements in our muscles as we breathe, in our diaphragm, in our abdomen, in our chest. We see that breathing doesn't happen in our nostrils, but happens with all these muscles throughout our body. We observe the feeling at our nostrils of the air that comes in and the air that goes out. We observe the change in temperature, the difference between the cooler air that we inhale and the warmer air that we exhale. With kindness, we bring our breathing to an abdominal breathing. When we inhale as much air as possible without forcing, bringing the air under our navel, and we inhale, we inhale as much as we can under into our belly, and when we exhale as much as we can, we release as much air as possible until we contract our abdomen. So inhale deeply. And we exhale deeply. We blow up our abdomen a little bit and then we exhale, constricting the muscles. When we inhale, in addition to blowing up the air of our belly, we also fill up our upper chest. We inhale and then we blow up first our abdomen, and then also inhale, fill up our upper chest until there's a slight movement in our shoulders. And then we exhale deeply, emptying out first the upper part of our chest and then emptying out the lower part of our belly, of our abdomen. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. We gradually bring our awareness to the space that's created between the inhalation and the exhalation, and then afterwards between the exhalation and the inhalation. In other words, we naturally try to hold the air without forcing for a natural amount of time. So we inhale, we hold, then we exhale, then we hold, and then we inhale again. When we inhale, we count to 4. Then we hold the air, whatever's comfortable, ideally getting to 8. Then we exhale with a count of 8. Then we hold a count of 8, and then we exhale in the count of 4. So inhale, hold, sorry, exhale in 8, and I hold in 4. And inhale 4. And I hold for a count of 8. And I exhale a count of 8. Hold for 4. And inhale again for 4. And so it goes, each one as is comfortable for you. Inhale. Without counting, just naturally, breathe naturally. And exhale deeply. Then you hold without being in a hurry to breathe again. Inhale again deeply. And hold and maintain your awareness on your breath. Little by little. You can open your eyes and move your hands. This that we've just done is just a taste. A little taste. And I think that for many of you, you can really feel a difference between the before and after. There's something happens. Knowing how to meditate is useless if you don't meditate. So we need to meditate, not know how to meditate. So I invite you to try without being afraid of making a mistake or being afraid of some kind of a negative side effect. Yes, there are techniques, advanced techniques. There are advanced techniques that can bring negative side effects, but these are techniques that are not explained to beginners. Like in the same way that if you're there's some physical activities that shouldn't be explained to someone who's just starting to do sports. Something I'd like to explain also briefly. If you are in a particular moment of tension, of anxiety or anger or fear, whatever it is, what happens is when you inhale, imagine light that goes towards that tension wherever you feel it in your body, and when you exhale, that tension is released as a kind of dark smoke that dissolves into the space in front of you. So if it's a strong emotion, inhale from your nose and exhale from your mouth. If there's a tremendous amount of anxiety or fear or anger or jealousy, if the emotion is very strong, do like that. And then once you calm down a little bit, then you can go back to breathing from your inhaling, exhaling from your nostrils. And then as you calm down, imagine that light that just fills your body, bringing yourself more and more to that state of balance and peace. And it's just one among many techniques that exist. You can do it at any time, in any place, in the subway, or while you're waiting for someone, or when you begin your day, for example. Try at the beginning of the day. When you wake up, even you're just taken a little bit with this sleepiness, so just sit up and try to breathe with awareness a couple times, and maybe it's a couple times. It can be 5 minutes. That's even better. And in the evening, before you get to bed, sit down another 5 minutes. At lunchtime, another 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And then there are moments where you allow yourself to breathe without looking at your watch. It's said that when you're at the beginning, you should do it more often for shorter amounts of time. When you have more familiarity, you can do it for fewer times, but for longer times. without ever forcing too much. Because if I push myself and that exercise becomes tiresome, then I won't want to do it again. So little by little, we need to get out of our comfort zone, just little by little, without it being too fast. I invite you to take it as a commitment. This challenge of diminishing distractions. Take this commitment together with the challenge of diminishing our distractions, turning off your cell phone. Try to go out a couple times without your cell phone. And take the commitment where you take 5-10 minutes to do these breathing exercises, which is a preliminary exercise to meditation. But what's beautiful is that if you do it well, I don't know what your experience was, but when we started counting our breaths correctly, or started really counting, that inner dialogue really calmed down, right? But instead, if I say, sit down, breathe and don't think about anything else, that's not going to work. So this is a preliminary exercise to the actual meditation, let's say, which doesn't mean that it's less valid or less important. Sometimes we have this idea that we want to do just high things. But we need to start where we are. I mean, the closest point to our destination is where we are. I mean, if I'm in front, it's like I want to scale a great mountain, and they tell me if you climb that mountain in 5 hours, you can get there. I say, okay. But if you walk, maybe you need 5 days to get to the top. Which is the faster way? It really depends. If I need to do it, then it's going to take a lot longer than 5. Certainly the shorter is the one of 5 days. So yes, it's faster to climb the mountain, if I'm able, it'd be even faster to take a helicopter. So the fastest path is the one we're able to do. So it's useless to say, oh no, meditation, advanced meditation here and there. No, we need to start where we are and respect that. There are the steps little by little. And as Lama Ganchen used to remind us often, slowly, slowly, quickly. Slowly, slowly, quickly. Like my experience with Italian bureaucracy. Let me explain. When I had this experience of building the temple and everything that had to do with construction, they would say, oh, to do this, you need this permit. Okay, which would take, it takes so much time. And this tendency of trying to look for a shortcut. And then we spend so much time looking for a shortcut, but then you need to start from beginning. So what I learned is, it takes 2 years. All right, let's file the papers, and things take time, and little by little you'll get there. If they tell you 2 years, is probably 6, but that's another, that's something else. You got to think about that from the beginning too. That's just my own experience. But what happens is, we need to start. It's too long, one might say. But our problem is that in the meantime, we're not just still, we're familiarizing ourselves with the opposite. It's not that in our daily life we're not familiarizing our mind. We're familiarizing our mind with agitation, anxiety, etc. We need to try to do the opposite. As a direction, it's like says first we learn to then forget. What does that mean? Imagine if you play a musical instrument at the beginning, you need to learn the theory. Then you need to put that theory into practice, and then you need to practice, 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 repeat, repeat, repeat until you get to the point one day you let's say you forget about the theory, you don't think about the theory, and that instrument becomes an extension of your body. And so one learns to then forget. You don't need to then go through all the points. This awareness of our breath, the presence in the present, to be present in the present moment, the diminishing of inner dialogue. First, we need to put effort into that. But when you are really familiarized with that, you get to the point where you're meditating when you're not formally meditating. You're able to keep this balance when you're speaking, when you're doing something else. You're able to keep that same state. And it's not something so difficult or unreachable. It's possible, in my opinion, for everyone. You just need to do it. Start where you are, little by little. I remember when I started meditating, the feeling was like the nails on a blackboard. It just this my body was just screaming, do something, and then pleasure came from meditating. So it's possible for everyone. If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't be here talking about it. So I invite you to try, believe in yourselves. It's possible and it's necessary. We need to be careful to not get into some kind of dynamic of victimization. Oh, I have so much anxiety because it's society. I've got this because it's that and the other. There are many reasons. Okay, but let's take the reins in our hand and let's do what we're able to do. And meditation is free, costs nothing. There are no negative side effects. It creates some kind of addiction, but it's positive. And there are many scientific studies that talk about the benefits of meditation. But I repeat, knowing how to meditate is not enough. One needs to put his tush on a cushion and sit. And even those days that you don't feel like doing it, you do it. Because when you skip a day, you skip for 3 months. Try to maintain as much as possible the rhythm, this constancy. And if you think that you can meditate 3 times a day for 15 minutes, take the commitment to meditate once a day for 5 minutes. The commitment should be like a third of what you think you can do. And then if you do 5 times more, 3 times more, wonderful. But what's important is that it's doable and constant. And then even in those days where it's very tiresome, difficult, but the commitment is still maintained. And there's also this great benefit of that feeling of doing even when it's difficult. So try it for a month. And then if you see if it's beneficial, keep doing it. If you see that it's not beneficial, then move on. But it's something that we need to take into our own hands. All right, so this is all. Let's make our final dedication. I thank you all for being here.
Losan tempe dreme sasum ki drove munsela taktu ne gyurche kewa kunto yanda lama dang dralme cheki pela longche chi sada lamki yente rabzone dorje change kopa nyurtobasho shide simcho rimpoche Make panama ke gyurchi ke pa nyambra me pa yang kongne konto pelwar sho.
May the peaceful mind that has not yet arisen arise and grow. May that which had already arisen continue to grow. At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Thank you, everyone. Have a good lunch. And if you'd like to quickly say hello, it's not the time to have long conversations because I need to soon make a translation for my master, Trijang Rinpoche. Thank you.